teach you how to make a favorite recipe of mine for a passion fruit curd, which is infused with rose water. However, that part is completely optional. This can definitely be replaced with lemon if you so wish. However, this is a very, very light cream, so it doesn't have a lot of body. It's not really something that you could use to pipe, I guess, as it won't hold its shape if that's what you're after. But if you are looking to add something delicious onto your scone, or fill between cake layers, or add inside of a tart shell, this is the recipe for you. So without further ado, let's do this thing.
Okay, so for the start of the curd, we're going to start off with 187 grams of passion fruit puree. In kitchens we usually use macarons, but you can also use just fresh passion fruit pulp that has the seeds in it. 25 grams of freshly squeezed lemon juice, 125 grams of caster sugar, and you just want to mix that together lightly and sit it on the stove until it comes to a simmer and the sugar's dissolved. And while that's happening, you want to whisk together 5 eggs, really break them up. You could even use a immersion blender or a bar blender for this to make sure they're completely broken down and liquid. And then when that syrup has completely dissolved all the sugar and it's really hot, we're going to temper it into our egg mixture little by little. Make sure you take your time to temper properly here because this syrup will be super hot. You don't want any scrambled eggs. Now you need to go ahead and add that directly back into the pot, and we're going to take that over to the stove on a medium-low heat and cook this curd out until it's completely thickened and reaches 84 degrees Celsius. Which means you will need a sugar thermometer for this, or anything that's going to allow you to measure the temperature up to 84 degrees Celsius. Unless you just want to try and wing this and try and cook it until it's thick. Just be careful that you do not overcook those eggs. Low and slow is best. Now as soon as that curd has hit 84 degrees, you want to take it off the heat straight away. Make sure you stir continuously because the residual heat in that pot can still overcook your curd. You want to pass it through a sieve. This is a drum sieve that I'm using, but you can also use just your standard handheld sieve. And you want to pass that straight through to remove any cooked egg or seeds that are still remaining in the curd straight into the bowl. Try to do this part in batches because it's actually a lot easier to handle when you work with small amounts at a time. And between each new batch, make sure you're discarding your seeds and any cooked egg that's on top of the strainer. Don't force them through the holes because you don't want to end up with those in your curd. Okay, so now your curd is nice and smooth. Make sure that you go ahead and scrape out any excess in the bottom of the strainer because we don't want to lose any of that liquid gold. And we're going to cool this down until it reaches 45 degrees Celsius. You can help it along by giving it a good stir every now and then to get some airflow in there. And once it's reached that 45 degrees, then we can move on to our next step of adding in our 10 grams of rose water. Alternatively, if you don't want to use the rose water, you could also just add fresh vanilla bean or orange blossom water or anything that you really like here. And 387 grams of room temperature unsalted butter. It's super important to use room temperature butter here, guys, because if your butter is too cold, it will chill the curd down too much and we won't be able to incorporate the rest of the butter, and there is a lot of it. So we're going to incorporate all of this butter in 4 additions using a stick blender to emulsify it properly into the curd.
starting to thicken. It's pretty cool in here, so it's already starting to set. But I just want to show you one variation that you can do with this, which is how we take this product from being a curd to what we call a Crémeux. And that is very simply done by making a curd or an anglaise and adding gelatin. So I'm going to take half of this and I'm going to mix it with 2 sheets of bloomed gelatin that I have in here, and I've already melted it down. And we're going to take half of the curd out, but start just with a very small spoonful so that we can incorporate it without the gelatin setting in these gross strands. So I'm going to go about this much to begin with, pour the gelatin in there and quickly mix it up so that it's completely combined, and then we can go and add the other half. And then I'm going to show you tomorrow, when it's sat overnight and completely set, what the difference is between the natural set of the curd with the butter and the set with the additional gelatin of the Cremeux. Okay, it's the next day. I'm just like super impatient and they're set already, so let's take a look at these 2 things. In the bigger bowl we had just the passion fruit curd, and in the smaller bowl was the one that we made into a passion fruit Cremeux. And the difference in texture is pretty evident. So the curd I can actually press in with my finger. It does have resistance, I can feel it's completely set, but it's most likely not going to get any harder than that. You could put all of this into a piping bag and use it to fill something like an eclair or a pastry shell or something like that, but it's very unlikely to hold its shape at an ambient temp because there's so much butter, whereas this one is completely firm to the touch and doesn't really give to my finger much at all. And it does look kind of gelatinous, but once you actually work it a little bit and loosen it up, it will hold its shape really beautifully, and you'll actually be able to use a piping tip to decorate the top of a tart or something like that. So they both are absolutely delicious and they both have their own uses. It just really depends on your preference of what you want to use them for. What I'm going to do with the Cremeux is I'm going to put this into a mixing bowl with a beater attachment or a paddle attachment, and I'm just going to soften it up and bring it back together so that it's a more pipeable consistency, and then you'll be able to see. But like you can already see, this is like, it's quite set. So we just need to break down that gelatin structure a little bit more for it to be a little more manageable. Okay, so that's come off the KitchenAid now, and you can see it's smoother, and you could put this in a piping bag, but it's extremely stable. So this is definitely one that you could use to put in something that would be exposed, I guess, if you wanted to pipe it on top of a tart as mentioned, or if you wanted to fill a macaron with it perhaps. This would be the perfect consistency, whereas you would use the plain curd to put in something like a cake layer or something, which does require a softer mouthfeel. So I've just pulled some macaron shells that I keep in my freezer because, you know, and I'm just gonna show you what the Cremeux texture is like inside of a macaron, just so you can see how the Cremeux holds. So it's very stiff. And those are perfect little macaron. I don't know if you can get that lighting.